You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amba TV.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. Our slogan is "We are here because you are there." We are all on a journey to one place, symbolized as Biya. I want to thank you for joining me today on today's program. And we have just one topic, but it's a very topic. It's a topic that will cover a span because of how much information could be shared by our guest, our permanent guest, Dr. Fred Lobati. Before he comes on, I want to always begin by thanking all of you, especially the ASA, Ambazonia State Army, that have day in, day out, guided and protected our territory, our people. I also want to salute our genuine Ambazonians in neighboring La République du Cameroon and those who are all over the world in the diaspora and in neighboring La République, in neighboring Nigeria and other African nations. And special shout out to our refugees. We pray that sooner than later we will bring you all home. Dr. Lobati, welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman.
Thank you very much, Mappy. I'm very happy we have another opportunity to share with our people. Thank you very much for this program again taking place today.
Wonderful. So the topic today is really on what is brewing in neighboring La République du Cameroon and in Ambazonia as people are expecting or waiting for the elections in October. This year, the election seems to be a special one for several reasons. One of the reasons, in my view, is how far Ambazonia has gone and what we plan to do, regardless of what happens in La Republic. The second reason is what is transpiring in Africa. There's a growth of youth dynamism, patriots that are trying to make sure that Africa is great, particularly Ibrahim Traore and other young leaders. And also what is happening in the world in general, the wars that are in different parts of the world that have brought to light that if people are supporting Ukraine, then they should support Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Before I ask you my first question, Dr. Lobati, I want to read something that I came across. It's from a small pamphlet written by Fongala 4. It stated, "Restoration of British Southern Cameroon Statehood, Truth or Fiction?" And the introductory paragraph is very important. It says, and by the way, this was, to put context in terms of time, I thought I had the date when this was published. It doesn't really show here, but I think it was like 2007 or thereafter, or shortly after. It says, the non-violent struggle for the restoration of the statehood and sovereign independence of British Southern Cameroons, championed by the Southern Cameroons National Council, SCNC, is predicated on truth and not fiction. It is dealing with the known, not the unknown. This truth is historical, legal, cultural, and territorial. These are the ingredients that distinguish a people entitled to inherit an inalienable right to self-determination, decolonization, and independence under international law. It is this that give people common shared idea, core values, and a common sense of identity and belonging. So I bring this small history because we've gone past that. We know that in 2017, under President Ayub Tabi, we restored our statehood, and under President Sako, we are now government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. So my first question is, Southern Cameroonians experience true democracy from 1954 to 1961. What has been the experience in the political life of La République du Cameroon?
Yes. So this is very interesting indeed because the two peoples are totally different people. The people of the former British Southern Cameroon, we call Ambazonia today proudly, are totally separate and different from the people of La République du Cameroon. As people know from previous presentations in this program, we were compelled to be controlled with Nigeria together after we were cut off from the former German colony. But with time, we realized that our interests were not really properly addressed. And we felt like we were being maltreated by the people of Nigeria. And so our forefathers, who were in politics and strong, determined to move us to our headquarters in Biya. And in 1954, we separated ourselves from Nigeria and went to Biya. And during this time, we were selecting our leaders through the democratic process of elections. As we know, democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And in fact, in our territory, people who were eligible to vote were registered without coercion. Nobody was not registered. During election times, they participated in elections and chose the leader. In fact, the purpose of the election is to differentiate between different ideas that the people will select which one may be better for them. And during our elections, our leaders went together in the same vehicle and stood together on the same platform and expressed their different thoughts of the society that they envisioned. And people who listened chose what they thought was good. For example, during the plebiscite, and remember that before the plebiscite, you had elections for prime minister when Endele was the first prime minister and Foncha defeated him in the second election before the plebiscite. In the plebiscite, where our forefathers were compelled by the UN to choose either to stay with Nigeria or with La République du Cameroon, our forefathers stood there and debated in open, frankly, freely, peacefully. Endele expressed his ideas and felt that we should, even though we left Nigeria, go back and stay with Nigeria under this compulsion by the UN and the British in this case. While Foncha felt that we should rather join La République du Cameroon and form a federation of two equal states as promised. And when the people listened, they thought maybe Foncha's ideas were good. They voted freely, and Foncha carried the day. In fact, Endele and Foncha would drive in the same car to the final grounds where the election results will be proclaimed, and the person who won will be celebrated. That is the experience of our people. There was no war. There was no rancor. It was just an expression of different ideas, and the people chose what they thought was good. The situation with La République du Cameroon is totally different. Mm-hmm. In fact, the La République du Cameroon has never ever had an opportunity to truly, freely, out of good conscience, choose between one of two ideas. They have never had that. And it is because La République du Cameroon has been totally under the control of the French. So the French had never wanted to release control of La République du Cameroon. And so when the elements within La République du Cameroon were trying to fight for their independence, from the mid-1940s, when the Second World War came to a close, the French immediately started fighting these people, and it peaked in 1955, and they did everything to eliminate them and finish them off by 1971. Then the French were the ones choosing who their leaders would be. So they were working with some elements that were working with the French against the interests of those who wanted true independence, like Biya. But when the French realized that they would not totally submit, they went and chose Ahijo, a Muslim from the north, who was not very well educated, and then enforced him on the people of La République du Cameroon. During fake elections, and the elections are always fake, they are not true elections, the French manipulated the results to proclaim Ahidjo the leader. And since then, Ahidjo remained the leader of La République du Cameroon up till 1982, when the French again, altering the constitutional provisions that would determine who would be the next leader, and had privately prepared Paul Biya, to take over, that they can maneuver from behind the scenes. The French deceived Ahidjo that he was very ill and could no longer rule, and that he had to leave office and pass it on to Biya. And so again, Biya was not elected. He was selected by the French, and they forced Ahidjo to pass power on to him. Since then, La République has always pretended to have what they call elections, and all those elections are manipulated. Remember that the French are the ones manipulating the numbers behind the scenes. The French are the ones who have trained La République du Cameroon in changing election results, manipulating and doing all kinds of tricks. We know how it feels like for those of us who live on the ground. They refuse to register people who they think will vote against them. And then they compel others to vote even on gunpoint, like students and others. They seize your ID card, lock you up in jail, and said if you don't vote the way they want, they will kill you. They even registered people who are dead and they claim that they have voted. And even after the results are collected of all these fraudulent elections that are controlled by the Ministry of Territorial Administration and the DOs, they still go to the higher authority to proclaim results and change it there. In fact, they have reached the point where they no longer need all that process. They already know what results they're going to proclaim. They just pretend to have held an election. So what I'm trying to bring out here is that the people of French Cameroon have a totally different experience about the process of democracy than the experience of the people of the former British Cameroon from 1954 to 1961. That is a true difference, and their thinking is totally different. They cannot understand because they've never experienced it before. That's what I would say to that question. My pay. So like I was saying before, my pay returns.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm back. Thank you for that explanation. So La République basically, although they had their independence, they were really never really independent from the onset. Unlike Southern Cameroons, former British Southern Cameroons, we already started practicing our democracy, our independence, governing ourselves, making our own decisions. Unfortunately, things went awry with the fake federation. Moving on, so this topic today has to do with what is happening there in that land, and also we'll cover what is happening in our land. So in that case, I want to ask of you, what is happening now in La République du Cameroun as they prepare for the so-called elections? Because everyone knows that elections are coming up in October. And some Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians may say, why even bother talk about this topic? Why should we concern ourselves? It is important to know what is happening in the neighboring land. It's crucial because depending on what happens, we plan differently, we prepare differently to take total control of our territory. So what is happening as they prepare for that fateful date in October?
So La République du Cameroon is planning again to do a fake election. They have never truly had any true, authentic election where the people freely, out of good conscience, chose their leaders. And they have always done what the French told them to do, and they mimic what happens in France. So when France used to have 7-year terms of their president, so La République adopted that, and that's why they're still doing the 7-year term. But eventually, France has changed it to 5 years, and they have not yet done it. Remember, we used to be called when we were 2 federated states, and then they broke it up into provinces. Then the French separated regions are called regions. So La République imitated the French by calling their own, what used to be provinces, regions. So they tried to mimic whatever they see the French do. And so, in fact, they cannot separate themselves from the French. So anyway, they're still doing the 7-year term thing. So Biya claimed to have won in 2018, and so in 2025 they're supposed to have an election, and that's what they're preparing to hold. But they already have the results. The results are already printed out, they're just waiting to pretend that something happened and then come out and proclaim the results. And what they are actually doing right now is to prepare the grounds to declare that Paul Biya has won. They know that he's a 92-year-old guy who's almost going to die soon, and he wants to pass the power to his son, the Frank Biya. So he knows that the Frank Biya is very unpopular, not intelligent, will likely not, if you truly hold any elections, he will not win because the Biya family is very unpopular. So they want to use the machinery of rigging they have always done to proclaim Biya as the winner. And then if he naturally dies, they'll just accelerate his son there. That's one tactic they're trying to do. The other one is if he becomes incapacitated through illness, evident to the public, right now he's ill and frail, hiding in the village. But if it becomes evident to everybody worldwide that he is incompetent, then they will just accelerate his son and make him the chairman of the CBDM party. And according to their constitutional provisions in their party, the chairman of the party is the natural candidate for president. So they will push his son to that position and then make him the presidential candidate and rig in his favor. So that is what they are working towards. And they're doing everything possible, in fact, using one of my classmates to oppress anybody who may attempt to stand and be a threat to him. They don't want any popularity of those figures, so they're suppressing any manifestations in the Republic of Cameroon from any other opponents and doing everything to propagate Biya. And then as usual, they go around and give bribes. They'll even go and bribe Okada riders that are being molested by the police on the roads every day. Give them some little bread and sardine and some little money for the day to ride and say it's only Biya. All segments, the chiefs, all elements of the all over the regions to give the world the impression that he's so popular that everybody is only asking for him to be leader. And then they will accept the results when he's eventually proclaimed. So right now, they're preparing the grounds, oppressing any so-called potential threat from an opposition. This forced Kamto, who was the one that won the last elections and seems to be the most prominent individual in their country right now, to go and hold a rally but in France because he could not hold it in Cameroon. And when he went to France, there was a very, very large rally where he spoke. And I want people to note, he said there that he would do everything to protect the Biya family. This is important. If this discussion continues, I'll explain to you why that is extremely important. He told them that he would protect the Biya family and held his rally. But when he was coming back home, they did everything to prevent him to reproduce that level of big meetings in Cameroon. So La République du Cameroon gathered the military, they picked him up at the airport, basically gloved him and locked him up and carried him to his place and prevented him from talking to the crowd. The population was very enthusiastic. They were happy. They wanted to receive him enthusiastically and went out, but they could not have the Kamto because he was picked up by the military and carried away and quarantined in a house. So he spoke to them through the video. And when he spoke through the video, he basically said, well, everything is fine. People should not worry. People should now go to their homes and that kind of thing. Again, this statement is very important for later discussions. So then after about a couple of days, then they put him in the vehicle and carried him to Yaoundé. People gathered around him. They prevented anything from happening. So you see La République du Cameroon doing everything to prevent any potential threat, any potential popularity of any individual separate from Biya and his son or his family being known within the country, so that when they rig elections, people would just say that there was nobody who was popular. In the interim, you also see the French coming in to prepare these elections. So you find a French military gendarme officer, the man in charge of the gendarmerie in France, the director of the French gendarmerie, came to Cameroon to supervise the troops. This is evident now that French La République infrastructures, military, everything governmental is supervised by the French. This one is evident of that. So he came and said he's coming to prepare for the October elections to make sure there is peace and security during the process. So you see that everything is supervised by the French in collaboration with the Biya regime to make sure that the transition, the supposed transition that must be because Biya was going to die, takes place with a new person, new individual in office within the next 1 or 2 years or so, and basically continue in the same front. Basically, that's what's going on there. There are many other details of things that we can say, but that is what is happening in La République du Cameroon. Well, what is happening in Ambazonia is different. We'll talk about it eventually later.
Okay. I would ask that we see some photos or some pictures shedding light on what you just said. And while the pictures or photos come on, I still want to talk about this Kamto issue.
Mhm.
Yes, well, here they are.
So this is the military general who
Mhm.
controls the French gendarmerie talking to La République du Cameroon. You see them all listening like a classroom. He is their teacher. He is the one who controls them. This is the military general. He appeared. He's talking to the same military gendarmerie that killed our people, but he's giving them instructions and directing them. They are all submissive. These are the French people. He's going throughout the place and supervising to give them instructions how to carry on the election and make sure there's peace and tranquility. This is the so-called Minister of Defense. He was supposed to be the most intelligent student from Enam. Anyway, he's giving him instructions again on what to do.
Well, we have, I don't know what's going on. Can you see me?
I cannot see you. I don't know why, but I can hear you
Yes,
very well.
I can hear you
Uh,
too, but the screen is dark. So let's wait and see what
yeah,
happens.
it could
Um,
be a sabotage.
oh,
Good,
there we
thank
go.
goodness.
Yeah. So from what you just said, it appears that uh, La République is still and has always been under the control of France. But
Mhm.
back to the Kamto issue. Um, why is it that they don't even want Kamto to be a good opposition, to be there side by side, Biya or
Okay.
whatever is Frank,
I,
eventually. Why do they just want to,
I
shove
personally
him
feel that
out? Yes.
there are two different opinions there. There is I have an opinion about what the Biya clique, Beti Bulu clique one concerning Kamto Wizibamdike. And I also have an opinion what I think the French one, which is separate from what the Biya clique wants. Now, remember that the Bulu Beti mafia had a strategy for the conservation of power in Cameroon from generation to generation
Mm.
by Paul Biya and his regime crooks. In this document, they despise all ethnic groups except the Bulu Betis and those who are affiliated and working with them from those other sides. So, and the Bamli case, they said there was a genocide against the Bamli case in the 50s, right through to the 70s. And if necessary, they will commit another genocide and will never allow a Bamli case to come to power. So they're doing everything to oppress and kick Kamto down because he's a Bamli case. That's what the Petit Bulus are doing. Same thing they have said the anglophones will never come to power. We don't want to go into that right now. But I personally believe the French would like to have some semblance of a fake opposition in Cameroon, just like they did to Frundi. Remember that Frundi said that when he accepted to be opposition. So when did Frundi ever openly accept to be opposition? I think that what happened was that Frundi won the elections. They tried to kill him. They tried hard, it didn't work. They rigged the elections, put Biya in there, and then Frundi was co-opted by the French, and they basically had an agreement that just pretend that you're opposition. Just play the role of opposition. And since then, they started calling Frundi the main opposition leader. He had freedom to travel around. He built houses in Yaoundé, intermarried with Bulus, like Owunas, and they were dancing in Yaoundé. And after a while, they still killed the Frundi. So they don't even care who you are. So I wouldn't be surprised if the French at some point would like some semblance of what is called opposition, but it is a controlled and managed opposition. But
Opposition.
the Bulus never want the case to come to power.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, let's go closer to home. What is La Republic doing in Ambazonia as we speak? I read something from the Independent, the article showing what was happening, where there's some sort of xenophobia going on. Our people's homes are being burnt. Could you address that and talk about other things that are happening?
Correct. So again, remember in that document that I just talked about, what the Beti Bulu say about Ambazonia or the children of the former British Cameroon or the English speaking. It's important to read and understand this because that is what is going on there. So what they say, the Anglophones, we know they don't want secession, but to win big, we will have to accuse them of separation and terrorism. So everything that they say about us is false accusation. And they know that, and it's deliberate. We must do everything to ensure that their sense of rigor is perceived as leftism and ridiculed by other citizens. That means even though we are rigorous, like I mentioned about our own elections that we used to hold, we do things the right way, they want to look at it as something inferior. Can you imagine? Now, let's not forget that there are agreements between the French and the English, for the English to give up their historical ties to English-speaking Cameroon. And other agreements would have been made with France never to allow an English speaker to ever be president of that country. So forget about Mona trying to run, or Joshua Esu, or whatever you call his name. It was with this in mind that Fruni's election was stolen in 1992 without England saying a thing. However, the fear of Anglophone revenge is not entirely insignificant. Anglophones complain of their marginalization, but with the support of France, the threat is less. Besides, God has destroyed the human race. This is important. God has destroyed the human race several times in order to rebuild it. So in this war that we are waging against the Anglophones, the number of deaths should not count. Only those who are living should count. That point is very important. That means they are saying that God has destroyed the human race multiple times and rebuilt. Remember the time of the Noah's Ark. And when all of humanity was destroyed, and then only Noah and his family came out. So they are thinking that because things like that have happened, their goal is to totally destroy the English speaking. And what matters is not how many have died. They should not have any sympathy towards the English speaking. What matters is rather how many are living, so that they should further continue to plan what to do with them. So right now, besides the open war that they had, when it was evident to the entire world that genocide was going on and they were killing our people, so they retreated and pretended that there is no war while it continues. So they recruit some English-speaking people, deceive them, give them bribes to go around killing people among ourselves. Then they recruit boys, Okada riders, and young people who desire to join the military from the southern zone of Ambazonia, of the southern Cameroons, train them and send them in the northern zone as La Republique military. So that when we see them, we look at them as La Republique military who are killing us, and they are there to kill us. And when we fight them, we are killing our brothers from the southwest. In the same, they have taken young men from the northern zone, the northern region, northwest region, train them and send them to the southwest, so that people see them as La Republique military killing them and then kill them. So what is happening is they want us to be killing ourselves among each other. In the meantime, La Republique military has created torture and death chambers. The Bamenda airport is one of them. The cooperative college in Bamenda is another one. There are many of them that are hidden. So they individually pick people on the streets, unknown to others. They just pick you as an individual, carry you there, torture you, and kill you. There was a government civil servant, somebody who is working with the Republic government, who was basically trying to go and shop around the cooperative college and was picked up by the military and carried to this location. And they tortured him and almost killed him. He managed to have escaped with his life. He's the one who confessed that he heard people screaming, and as soon as they take the last breath, then you hear the noise stop. That's how they have been killing people. And people who live around the airport in Bamenda have been complaining. How do you hear people screaming, and then suddenly they will stop suddenly because they gave up the ghost, the last breath. So La Republique is killing people in death centers around Ambazonia, where they are sending people, children from the southern zone, trained as La Republique military to the northern zone to be killing our people, so that our people will be fighting against them, thinking that they are fighting La Republique. And vice versa, they carry children from the northern zone to the southern zone. And then they bribe people from among us to go around causing trouble, calling themselves Amba boys, who are basically La Republique military camouflaging and pretending to be Amba boys. That is what La Republique is doing, to confuse us, to continue killing us, to accomplish that goal. That means eliminate them, destroy them. The number of deaths shouldn't count. Only those who are living should count. And that is what they are carrying out right now.
It's such a shame that we have lost so many young people, young men and women, because of these atrocities committed by La Republique du Cameroon. The blessing is that we now have internet, because in the days of the Bamileke War, they were able to do things like that under the radar. Nobody knew what was going on. And that war was hidden from the world. And only recently, people are reading and learning of how many people got killed and how it transpired. Because some of the French men themselves who took part in this genocide were so guilty that they told the story about what is happening. So since we have social media now, we have internet, La Republic cannot really hide from this genocide anymore. So they've come up with a method of systematically reducing our numbers, like you just explained. But there will be change. There will come a time where all this will come to an end. All right, let me ask you another question, Doc. Let's bring you back on the screen. You've already mentioned, I don't know if you're hearing me. Okay, you've already mentioned about what La Republique plans in terms of pushing Biya again, either the dead, very old and incapacitated Biya or his son on La Republique de Cameroon. But are there any true interest groups that are present right now in the context of what we're talking about with regards to the Biya government? And what are their real intentions, and how are they preparing to accomplish the goal? I know you've talked a little bit about it when you described what was happening before, but
So now we are focusing on the so-called elections that are going to take place in October. So you have separate interest groups there. First of all, the Biya Bulu Beti gang is so afraid of losing power because they know that population-wise they are in a small minority. Even though they have filled the military with their ethnic group, the police, the gendarmerie, and all of that are predominantly from that ethnic group. They are all occupying the high-ranking positions in the Ministry of Finance, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. All of them are from that Bulu Beti gang. But their population is small. They know that if things really come to a head and people truly stand up, they'll be finished in spite of the military they have. If you put everything in uniform, they are less than 50,000. So that's one group struggling to retain control. The Northerners are also concerned, those who are not being bribed by the government, about the neglect that has taken place since Ahijo left. And so the young people in the North are threatening that after Biya, power must go back to them. The Bamilekes are also wanting to have an opportunity to have political control in that country. Like you see them singing and dancing around Kamto, pushing him up very much, propagating and hoping that eventually he will finally take power and the Bamileke will come to power in that group. Those are the big interest groups. But the other major one is France and the Western powers. Remember that the interest of the whites, let me call them the whites, the French and the Western powers in Cameroon and Africa is about our natural resources. They don't care about the human beings living there. They can kill all the human beings, it does not matter to them. They just want the resources. In fact, a French ambassador in Niger said French ambassadors were sent to Africa to terrorize the population and do everything to eliminate the population because they want an Africa without Africans there. They want to possess all the resources. So the French also have an interest to control the events of this election in Cameroon so that at the end, on the other side, they will still be controlling the resources as they agreed with Ahijo. That is why when the French realized that they were losing popularity and control of the Sahel states like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they faked an election in Gabon to give the impression that there was a change of government, but truly it did not change the control that France has over Gabon. They also attempted a similar thing in Chad because the former president of Chad had disclosed how the French were using him to manipulate staying in power, and he did not want to renew the France CFA after It was supposed to be renewed in 2019, and they used a front of Biya to pretend to enforce it on the Central Africans. And so when he expressed all those things, the French faked a military uprising and killed him on the field, and then brought somebody from within his house that he raised as a president of Chad to give the impression that there was a change in Chad. So they will do anything possible to fake a change as long as the French remain in control. So indirectly in Cameroon, as far as Cameroon is concerned, the French can use the Belly Butum Biya mafia, but they can also use anybody else, like they used Ahijo, or they can make an agreement with Camto as long as they are allowed to continue controlling the resources of the land. That is the interest of the French. So those are the like four cardinal groups that I mentioned: the the Bulu Beti mafia, and then you have the Northerners, the Bamilekes, and the French. This does not yet include the English speaking because those that have been absorbed by the government are just there, sodomized and humiliated to submission, and basically they serve the interest of the Bulu Beti mafia, and they don't care. They have no project for the future as far as Ambazonia is concerned.
So what about Chantal Biya? Where does she stand in this picture?
I know, because she's under Biya's wings, so they pretend that in fact, she's ruling because Biya calls him Madam President. So she's controlling the demented guy and ruling, and the men around Biya are all submissive and subservient to her. So she's been ruling for quite a while now, for almost over 10 years. But I don't think that if Biya leaves office or dies, she will come to power. It will be the same thing like Mugabe was trying to do in Zimbabwe. Remember that Mugabe had his wife, he elevated her, they decorated her with PhDs, and Mugabe was hoping that his wife would take over after him. And they did everything possible. She became in control, and nobody could come to power without her. But with time, after Mugabe was kicked out, do you hear anything about Mugabe's wife? You don't. So don't worry about Chantal Biya. She's just a decoration around Biya for the moment. When Biya is gone, she will be gone. I don't think that she will really be
I understand
president.
that. I read somewhere, or maybe I listened to someone say she cannot stand Frank Biya, that she has her own.
That is a small
issues.
family feud. Remember that Frank Biya is not her son. Remember, I come from a polygamous family. Mothers prefer their own natural born children to another woman's children. So Frank Biya is not her son. So it's natural, and even if Frank Biya is the one who brought her, and then Biya picked her up from her. But she is trying to prefer somebody that is ethnically related to her. That is the Ngongo guy who was also sodomized to be put in that place. And or one of her children, like her son and her daughter that are there that are not intelligent enough. So that's what is going on there. But whatever the case, Biya is interested in making sure that the thing stays within his family. But it will not stay within his family. I can guarantee you that. It will slip his hands.
Okay. I mentioned earlier that there was something happening in, when the war started, our people fled because villages were burnt down, and most of those villages are still empty. People have not been able to go back to rebuild where they had their property. And that's why we have these huge refugees Cameroonian refugees in Ambazonians, really, in Nigeria and other African countries. There was this article that anglophones driven out and their homes burned in Dikinemeki, state-sponsored xenophobia. In Dinemekeni, I don't know that word well. Let me see. Dikinemeki. Is it a state-sponsored xenophobia or ethnic cleansing? And then the author of the article went further and wrote, already calls mounting for international observers, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to intervene. How many times must Anglophones be burned before the world calls it by its name? As a local rights defender, this is not mere xenophobia, it's systemic ethnic cleansing. As the charred ruins of Anglophone homes still smolder in Dikinemeki, the country stands once again at the crossroads of division and impunity. the question remains, will justice come, or will the ashes of these homes become just another forgotten page in Cameroon's brutal tale of marginalization? So this is what is happening to our people that have fled from their own territory. And we have a lot of Southern Cameroonians in bigger towns like Yaoundé and Douala and other towns and Bafoussam. What can you say to them? What is your message to them as this so-called selection or election approaches?
Correct. So our people should not be deceived to think that the French will ever truly embrace and accept them as brothers of equal stature. You know, like in a family where family members and siblings respect each other as members of the same father and mother and respect each other. The Francophones don't. Here, in that document that I read to you, that public to conserve power, they say that Anglophones, they say that we must avoid any form of pity for Anglophones on the part of the Francophones. The Francophones have no pity on us, so that even if you think that you run, when they were burning our villages, you ran into East Cameroon to do business in whatever position or place there, and you go and work, you think that they will accept you, they will not. That's what is exemplified with Ndikinimeki. Ndikinimeki is a small place in Francophone territory close towards as you enter Yaoundé. When you leave Bamenda driving through Bafoussam to Yaoundé, you come to Ndikinimeki. That's where people used to stop and buy food to eat on the road as a continuum. Some Anglophones ran there as usual. We are hardworking. They open farms, stores. They burn their houses, seize their property, and they didn't care. And that's what they said. Say we must avoid any form of pity for Anglophones on the part of Francophones. The Francophones don't love you. They don't care about you. They may tolerate you for a while, but it will end up killing you. That's what they did to Frondi. After they have co-opted Frondi and made him to submit and become what he called to play the role of opposition. After they even got him have his son marry a Beti, Bulu, or Wona's family member. And then after they had him dancing with them, they turned around and killed Frondi. So even after they have sucked the life out of you and used you, they will still kill you because they do not have pity on you and they do not respect you. That's what they write in here. So those people who are like Atanganji or whoever, Diongute, fighting for Biya, and they make you remove your Ambazonian Southern Cameroonian wife and take a Bulu Beti one. They will just finish you off after they've sucked the life out of you. And now, he says that, like the Bamli case, Anglophones must be suspect in the eyes of every Francophone. So they even will say that even at Tanganji, they still suspect him, that he is an Ambazonian. So you can do everything to please the Bulus and the Betis, they still don't accept you. They still suspect you as you can be a traitor. And that's why the Ongute went to Bamenda, and then he said it's time to restore our dignity and our respect. And then a military guy came and said, hey, no, that's not what you're supposed to say. And then he started faltering like he had hot potato in his mouth and trying to change his word. But what was coming out of his conscience was the fact that the dignity of the English people needed to be restored. The respectfulness of who we are as a separate nation from the Republic needed to be restored. That is in every true, genuine Southern Cameroonian. And even when they have been sodomized and into submission and hypnotized, one day it still comes out of them. And the Secretary General of the UN had said before that forcing the British Southern Cameroon to live with French Cameroon is like forcing a balloon under the ocean. One day it will come out. So even a genuine Ambazonian trying to pretend to be a Francophone, one day when they are put under pressure, they will speak the truth and they can never hide it. And the Francophones know that.
That's right. The Francophones know that. You know, I wonder why the Francophones have just been so pliable. They're just so subdued. They don't have the fight in them to stand for what is right and oppose Biya for so many years. They just let it happen. Although that is so common in some other African countries. But I'm just praying that with what is happening in Africa, especially the example shown by Ibrahim Traore and other African leaders, there should be somebody in La République du Cameroun that nobody knows about right now, who, whatever happens with Biya and the French government or whatever, will come up and try to fight for their country and try to build their country and try to work with Ambazonia, knowing that without us being good neighbors, La République will continue to suffer. I just hope that there's somebody there looming in the background that will come out. But let me ask you my next question, Doc. I thought about this very well. Let's have Doc on the screen. I want to look at him while I ask this question. Yes. So, what is a likely surprise outcome of the so-called elections in October? Because people think A, B, C, but what is a likely surprise outcome in your view?
Okay, I'll give you that answer, but let me try to answer the other question you asked before, that why do the Francophones do nothing? Remember, you cannot do what you are not able to think about. You cannot be who you are not seeing yourself to be. If you think of building a house, then you draw a plan and then build a house. If it is not in your mind, you will not build a house. So it is not in the Francophones, because this is not something they have grown up with. They have not grown with that culture. Like Bawe said, like the former member of parliament from Jakiri spoke in the Francophone parliament. The English speaking, they want to express themselves freely, openly, and challenge authority. It is not in the Francophones. It is not in them. They submit to all authority. But also, there is an element of witchcraft. Biya is the highest witch in La République du Cameroon. And he sacrifices human blood. In fact, they drink human blood with red wine to give them supernatural power to control the people. And so, for example, when Frondi was very powerful, they took an anglophone military guy and sacrificed him, from a man from Bamenda, and sacrificed him in the River Senegal, so that the northwest region and the English speaking would be subdued. And eventually they succeeded, because even though there was a lot of uprisings, it didn't go far away. So there is the supernatural element of sacrificing human beings, and the more humans are killed, the more life is given to Biya. And the more human blood they drink, the better they are. And they go into a lot of different disgusting things that if I mention them, people will wonder where I got that fact, but I'll leave that one alone. That is the reason. But let's come back to the surprising element of this election. What is actually going to happen that will be surprising is the following. The Bulu will be struggling very hard to stay in power, like I said, using their military control, the gendarmerie and everything. While the French whites will want to keep control of Cameroon and, as much as possible, maintain peace, a semblance of peace. And so what I think will happen is likely this. The French, I believe, have an agreement with Camto already. That means Camto will respect the agreement they had with Ahijo in 1959, which Biya resigned in 2019. And that's why Camto is saying he will protect Biya's family. That's why he's telling the people, don't worry, go home, everything will be fine. And then the French that's why they are coming very strong and talking to the military that can oppress people. And in the final analysis, they'll just instruct Atangaji to stop pretending that Camto is not a candidate and allow him to run. And then allow Camto to win the elections like you would conduct a regular elections. And then they'll announce Camto as having won. But not realizing that Camto is the man of the French that they have cooked and prepared behind the scenes. So the whole of Cameroon will be rejoicing that finally that Biya dictator and witch and killer and genocider is gone, while the country is jubilating. And then Camto is brought in. Then Camto will basically now carry out instructions from Paris. People are jubilating that the government has changed, but nothing has changed. And as far as Ambazonia is concerned, remember that Camto was locked up in Kondengi with Ayuk Tabe and others. And while he was there, Nzongang was proud that they met Ayuk Tabe, ate with him and had an agreement. And Ayuk Tabe is now no longer for separation of English-speaking Cameroon from French Cameroon. So Camto will release all the political prisoners. People will rejoice that finally our Nera 10 are out, which we want them to be out. Not just today. Yesterday, they don't deserve being in any jail. All the prisons will be set free and people will be rejoicing. And then Kanto will now bring revolutionary change that Cameroon has never seen before, like the desire for 10-state federation that even the Sultan of Humban asked for before he died, that Mukete asked for. So that they will now ask for a 10th federated state, which will give the impression that Anglophone Cameroon cannot separate because it's going to be each so-called region that used to be a province becoming a state by themselves. And people will be rejoicing that something has happened. The Northeast will be rejoicing that change is coming. They can now autonomously vote for their own governors and no longer be imposed by Yaoundé. In fact, the change will be so turbulent that people will not even be thinking and not realize that it is all manipulated and manufactured and guided by France. That is the most likely outcome than Biya pretending using his military to kill people on the streets and falsifying results and staying in power. When they do that, they will be swept out. The crowd will push them out. But the French will do this, and people need to be vigilant to see the hands of the French controlling this.
Wow, that's interesting projection. Well, time will tell. So let's move on. Let's talk about the United Nations. Are they trying to save face at all as far as the election is concerned? The forthcoming election. What are they planning?
The United Nations has been a tragic failure as far as the children of the former British Southern Cameroon are concerned. Remember that after Cameroon was taken away from the Germans, it was a League of Nations territory, divided part to be controlled by the British and part controlled by the French. So we belong to the League of Nations that mutated into the United Nations and not these countries. And then later on, as UN trust territory, the United Nations instructed those countries that were administering the territories on their behalf to prepare them towards independence. So the British had to prepare us towards independence, and France had to prepare the Republic towards independence. But of course, they connived behind the scenes and killed the Secretary General of the UN, Dag Hammarskjöld, over Congo in a plane crash. He was an honest Norwegian who was going around trying to prepare the African countries towards independence. And he went to the Congo with plans to now move to Biya and talk to Foncha's government, preparing them towards the meeting in Fumban, how the two countries will come together. And because he was killed, when we were now compelled to meet in Fumban and decide on the form of government, the UN was not there. Remember that we were owned by the United Nations. We're a League of Nations, United Nations Trust territory. The UN was not there. That's why that so-called binding agreement is null and void. Then the British were supposed to be on our side representing our interests. They were not there. And the French alone were there. That's why, again, it is null and void because they basically faked things. So the UN has been absent since Dag Hammarskjöld was killed and has been a traitor because even when the genocide of Ambazonia started, Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary of the UN, and he used to be the Prime Minister of Portugal and became the President of the European Union before he came to this position as Secretary of the UN, while they were killing us, he went to Central African Republic, and we thought this is an opportunity for the UN to intervene and talk and put some sense into Biya, not to be killing our people. He came to Yaoundé at night, and they gave him a golden statue, and he left and has said nothing. And now the UN, they claim, is going to send observers to monitor the elections in Cameroon come October. Why? People need to understand. Philemon Yang is the factor here. Remember that Philemon Yang is Muna's son that he had with his Oku girlfriend. He has always been in government for a long time. He came to government in 1979. After he left Inam, he was a magistrate in Biya and then was co-opted into government as Minister of Mines and Power in 1979 and has still been in power till today with the government. From there, they mutated him to Canada where he was a High Commissioner for Cameroon for over 20 years. Then they brought him back and he was in the presidency as Assistant Secretary General. That is where they usually prepare Ambazonians or Southern Cameroonians to become Prime Minister. And from there, they put him Prime Minister, and the man who is the Minister of Finance was controlling that Prime Ministry, and he was just a figurehead to the point where he almost got sick and tried to run away, and they told the man to cool down and let him continue to play the figurehead thing, and he came back. And then they removed him, and he was just a symbolic fellow holding things, decorating people. So anyway, La Republique managed, and they got him to be the president of the UN General Assembly, which he's going to be replaced by a young German woman before the next meeting in September. So he has been so far since last September acting as the president of the UN General Assembly. So La Republique has felt that they will use him to give the impression that the United Nations will come to Cameroon to monitor elections, and that will silence Ambazonians forever. And I think that is a monkey sense, the little fictitious sense that they think they have, and they've used Philemon Yang to make that arrangement. So the UN will come and pretend that they're monitoring elections, and that way they will think that they would have silenced us. That see, the UN was there, so who do you want to recognize you when the UN was in the elections? But that is basically what it is. The UN has been a failure since Doc Hammarskjöld died, and the UN is controlled by 5 countries: the United States, Britain, France, Russia, and China. These are the major members of the UN Security Council. All the others are just figureheads. And if any one of these countries vetoes any resolution, it will not stand. And the US has the greatest power. So what they usually did was they will go and convince China and Russia to abstain. And then when the US votes, Britain follows them. And then France will also just follow them. It's just in there. Those are the major decision makers in the UN. So there's nothing like small Papua New Guinea or Argentina deciding and coming and influencing what is going in the UN. These 5, they are the people who matter. And so France, in collaboration with the US, want to control all the resources in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
And that is their mindset. And they will put whoever is in power who allows them to control those things. That is what is going on. Forget about the UN. The UN is just a symbolic talking house.
Yes, it's all about resources. It's all about resources. The interest of all this so-called the Big 5 and France in particular, that already has its tentacles all over La République du Cameroon. It's all about resources. We have 2 more questions. I'm going to end the program for today, Doc. Should Southern Cameroonians participate or be concerned about the outcome of the planned election? Because I think most Southern Cameroonians already have, a guess of what could happen. Should they participate? Should they be concerned about the outcome? We ask this question because we have restored our nation. We have a government. We're in exile. The only thing we need is to be able to have total complete control of our territory. So what do you make of this question? Is Doc there?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you
I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
So
Yes.
I don't think that citizens or children of the former British Southern Cameroon should participate in any elections whatsoever in La République du Cameroon. We have known from experience that it never had any consequence. They did whatever they did, or what France dictated is what they do. So why participate? Why waste your time going to participate in something that is a sham? But besides that, we had declared our independence in 2017, which troubled the Francophones and the French so much that Macron went to Nigeria after passing through Abidjan to negotiate with Buhari government to collaborate with La Republic to pick up our Naira 10. That's how much it troubled them. And they picked the Naira 10 and locked them up and trying to talk to them in prison, small, try to negotiate with them to allow us to be controlled still by the French for our resources. So anyway, no point in trying to participate in those elections because you're just wasting your time. If you know the facts and the truth, you don't need to participate in it. And also, we have declared our independence. The God of the universe who created everything has heard. And he knows that we have expressed our true wishes. So don't even waste your time going to any mailbox or pretending that you're voting. That's what I would advise them.
Absolutely.
Just live you wisely.
Absolutely.
And don't provoke anything in uniform on the roadside to hit you with a gun or shoot you. Live your quiet life. And with time, you will see what will happen.
Okay, and my final question, Doc, is what should Saru Cameroonians do as the country heads towards the upcoming elections, October elections?
Yeah,
Should Southern Cameroonians
I
do?
think that they should be well knowledgeable. If you listen to such programs, you can find more information for yourself by reading online. Don't waste time drinking alcohol and chit chatting and gossiping and pretending that you are with the Republic. They are not your friends. They hate you. They say they should have no pity on us. So don't waste your time. If you know that somebody does not like you, somebody wants to kill you, why waste your time trying to be talking with a person? Why waste your time trying to be negotiating with a person? It will be like a little lamb in the hands of a tiger that wants to eat it. And the little lamb is going around the tiger and playing it with his tail. And the tiger is just waiting to be hungry enough to swallow the thing. So don't waste your time trying to caress the francophones. They hate you. That's what they say in that paper, that they should have no pity on francophones, on anglophones, and that what matters is not how many have died, but rather those who are living, and they will figure out what to do with them. Therefore, don't waste your time with them. Inform yourself and love yourself. Don't let them make you feel you are second class citizen. In that document and other papers, they say that Biya looks down on Anglophones. He thinks that we are second class citizens and that we are like non entities. If you know that somebody thinks of you that way, don't worry. Let him in his feeble man think that way. I don't think of myself as a second class citizen or I'm inferior at all. Remember that you are created in the image of God. The Bible says, love others as you love yourself. So don't waste your love on others. You must love yourself to be able to love another. So regard yourself as somebody of stature and valor and value. And whatever they think, whether they call you cockroach or rats or dogs, you are not. They are poorly educated. You are a human being. You are not a cockroach, which is an insect. You are not a dog or rat. It's because they were poorly educated. They don't understand biology. That's why they call you that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that respect yourself, hold yourself in high esteem, believe in yourself. Don't worry what they think negatively about you, and handle yourself in a respectful way, and don't provoke the things on the road that can kill you with a gun. You remember when Biya came to Bamenda and said, Bamenda is my second home, people were rejoicing. Oh, Biya says Bamenda is his second home. And he does not even have a mud brick house in Bamenda. He was just telling this the fact. It is because it's not his first home. Bamenda does not need to be his first home. His first home should be his Bomeka, but also for me, where I come from is my first home. He should respect where I am from, just as I respect him from where he is from. He should not be undermining me because he came and stole our resources, filled his pockets with it, hide them in Switzerland and abroad in France and Germany and everywhere across Europe, and then think that he's more important because of the stolen goods. That does not make him more important than myself or any Ambazonian.
Wow. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much for coming to the Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. It's always a pleasure having you here. You have so much information to give our people. We're going to end the program today, and I just want to plead with Southern Cameroonians Ambazonians to continue to stay firm. Um, you know, I have thought about this several times, and I've brought it on several times on this program, that the generation, my generation, and maybe the generation before me, I'm talking those who are in their 50s, 60s, and beyond and above, we know the history. We have lived in our land when times were good. The people who went to great university, great secondary schools. They went to Sacred Heart, Sase, the PSSs, the PSS Mancon, Bamenda, CPC Bali, Our Lady of Lourdes, all those great secondary schools. They have individuals that are talented, that are knowledgeable, that are doing well for themselves. Some of them are still living in either La République du Cameroon, or they're living in Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, or they're somewhere in the world living in the diaspora. These individuals know the history. They know what has happened to our people. They recognize that at one time, people were fleeing for their lives. They may even know individuals or family members that have lost loved ones. But this group of people may not be able to do anything for Southern Cameroons in terms of something revolutionary. It really depends on our young people, those who are in their 40s and 30s. We need someone to start having that patriotic belief, like Ibrahim Traore, who is also a young, dynamic leader. We need someone who can come up and be firm and be on the side of the people, not on the side of France or other nations of the world, and put your country first, put your people first. We need those individuals, because whatever happens in La République du Cameroon, whether it's Kamto or Biya, Frank Biya or Biya himself, those are all stooges of the French. They will not be able to do things that benefit their country itself. So I am saying that we are hoping that there are some young, dynamic leaders somewhere that will one day emerge and free La République du Cameroon. And of course, we believe that there is one for Ambazonia after we get home, when we completely get full.